Welcome, everyone, to another show of Sports Wrap-Up. This one is not recorded live. It's another pre-recorded, longer show that we're doing here today. I'm joined by Mike Gerling at the desk with me today. Say hi, Mike.
Hey, guys.
So today, we'll talk a little football, see where everyone's at. You know, baseball playoffs are going on right now. We got a big football game tonight for Notre Dame. Hope you guys are watching that live when you can. Bunch of other things are happening around sports in general. NBA starting back up. NHL is trying to get into the groove now. But today we're going to focus on a little football here. And just to start with some news that we got a couple hours ago, Carlos Hyde gets traded from the Cleveland Browns to the Jacksonville Jaguars. So as a Leonard Fournette fantasy owner, this kind of concerns me because, you think the team has more information than I do about the state of the health of their star running back, and that kind of scares me because Fournette's a guy I drafted in the first round. I said this guy is going to be good this year. He's got a good offensive line, and now he's just not showing up. He's injured. He's not getting the playing time I think that he deserves when he is healthy, so it kind of scares me as a fantasy owner, and especially Carlos Hyde, who's a big bruising back similar to Fournette.
Yeah, I think you look at both sides of this trade in terms of fantasy implications. You start on the Jacksonville side. Jacksonville must know something about Fournette that the public doesn't know yet, like you mentioned. He must be hurt pretty badly, that they're concerned with his health long term, and they apparently, I always thought TJ Yeldon, he's a pretty good back. He's a little bit underrated in my opinion, but they apparently don't want him as their bell and cow running back. They'd rather have Hyde to be the guy that gets in between the tackles for them and runs.
I just got a fantasy trade. Trading Michael Thomas away for Will Fuller and Julian Edelman. I'm sorry, Joe Schranz, if you're listening to this, declined.
Yeah. But, yeah, on the Jacksonville side, I don't know. Fantasy-wise, would not touch that backfield, at least for the beginning, just to see how touches go. I'd imagine it'd be you're looking at Hyde for first and second down, and Yeldon's more the passing down back. That's what I would have to guess. But, again, not really sure how they're going to approach that situation. On the other side of the ball, I think absolute must-own now in every league, Nick Chubb, because they like Duke Johnson a lot there, and he's put up some clutch, I think it was one of their overtime games. They've had plenty of them where Duke Johnson had a couple long runs that he broke in overtime that helped him out, but I still think they prefer Nick Chubb to be the guy that goes between the tackles, and they use Johnson as he's one of the best passing down backs in the league. No one can deny that. But I think Nick Chubb an absolute must-own in all leagues now.
Yeah, and so just thinking of Cleveland running backs, the guy who came to my head, Isaiah Crowell, now on the Jets. Do you think, I know you were an advocate for him last year. Do you think that 216-yard game, whatever he had a couple weeks ago, do you think that's the real Crowell, or do you think that's just a flash in the pan to a guy who's going to give you at most 6 to 10 points a week?
I mean, I like the way the Jets' offense has looked so far under Darnold. I think he's undoubtedly been the best of the rookie quarterbacks so far. A lot of people got hyped with Mayfield in that game against the Jets, but I think since then he's leveled off a little bit. He's been playing more human. But I like the way Darnold works. I think they got a really good head coach. They're moving the ball well. The only thing is they've got a committee, Bilal Powell behind him, who's always going to steal touches because he's a good running back too. I think 200 rushing yards is amazing and a great performance. But again, it was against a Denver Broncos defense that's really struggled against the run so far this year, so I don't think there's that much to be taken out of it, that it shouldn't be, I need to go get Isaiah Crowell. I think he makes your team as an RB2 flex, and you should start him almost every week, but I don't think you should put him in that top 10 running back discussion quite yet.
Okay, now teams like myself, the guys who have Fournette on their team, the guys who have all these injured running backs, the guys who drafted Le'Veon, what are running backs that you see in free agency right now that you think these are must-have guys? You know, some of the guys in our league who are in free agency, Chris Ivory from Buffalo, Jamal Charles in Jacksonville, LeGarrette Blount, Amir Abdullah, Devontae Booker, Wayne Gallman. Do you see anyone down the list? Do you think a Kyle Juszczyk is worth it? Do you think a guy like a Rock Thomas out of Minnesota, now that Delvin Cook's injured for the third straight week, do you think he's worth picking up as another flex possible guy who can get some time? Do you think Raheem Mostert, the guy who went off last week for San Francisco, do you think he's worth it? What are the guys that you see that say you have to pick this guy up right now?
Yeah, I like Mostert put in a really good shift against the Packers the other night, and they have Juszczyk too. The only thing is those are two good running backs, but they got two other good running backs in Breida and Morris that should be owned in pretty much all leagues. And a committee is scary when there's 2 or 3 backs, but 4, I mean, it's hard to pick anyone out of that bunch out of that group. Of the players on our waiver wire, looking at our teams right now, there's not a lot of good options. I think Buffalo has turned into a little bit of a committee with Chris Ivory and LaShawn McCoy. Ivory, he's a big bruising back. That's what he was with the Jets for a little bit. I think that's where he was. I think if the Bills can get down to the 1 yard line, I think he definitely gets some touches, but I don't think he's a huge yardage potential type running back. But I definitely think there's touchdown potential with him. Detroit, too, LeGarrette Blount and Amir Abdullah are available in our league at least. Detroit running backs historically have been less than exceptional. And now that they've got Kerryon Johnson performing so well, I just think it turns it into even more of a committee, because even when one running back's doing good, it seems like the Lions always stick with that committee formation. But again, it's like, yeah, I would not touch the Lions running backs. On our waiver wires, I don't really like the look of anyone. We mentioned earlier, if I had to pick one person that's probably not owned in a lot of leagues, it's got to be Nick Chubb for me at this point. Okay.
So the way I see it now as well, you're getting into that time where you see what your fantasy team is. My fantasy is 2-4 right now. I'm not exactly sure how much you want to take my advice to heart, but in my opinion, by this point, bye weeks are starting to come into a huge play. Defenses on bye week, who are you picking up that you think is going to have a great week? Are the Broncos for real? They scored 38 points in our league this week against whatever team they played last night. But do you think the Broncos are really going to pick it up as of recently? Do you think the Dolphins are really that good of a defense? Do you think the Steelers are there, the Seahawks, the Packers? What teams that you might need to pick up defensively?
Well, I think first off, to hit on the Denver Broncos, I think by no stretch of the imagination are the Denver Broncos going to be putting up 30 points every week. I think they have a really good secondary. They still have Chris Harris Jr., who's a really good corner, but they've still struggled a lot against the run. And one great performance, I would not get completely overhyped. I mean, they're still, I would say, a top half defense to own in fantasy, maybe top 10, but they're not up there in the conversation with the Jaguars, even though they are coming off a bad week, the Bears and the Vikings, those type of elite defenses. Because I think that in watching the game yesterday night, it was more so the Arizona offense playing atrociously bad than it was the Denver defense playing good. Von Miller had one of the best games I've ever seen from a single defensive player have. He was getting pressure on the quarterback almost every play. I don't know. I think they should definitely be owned in all leagues, but don't get crazy overhyped with a huge performance like that.
Okay. Now, I just want to talk about one guy on my team at least that I feel is going to be pretty good in a couple of days. I think that Christian Kirk, the guy from Arizona, he's been a guy who's, if you watch some film of Arizona, yes, they had a terrible game last night, and yes, I understand. But they're playing the Broncos defense that still has some stars on it. Bradley Chubb's still there. You know, Von Miller, as you mentioned, is still there. They got some decent corners, and Roby's still there, I believe. So they got some bodies there still. But I think Christian Kirk is a guy that you got to pick up. I think that he's been overlooked a lot, but this is the guy who's going to take over the main receiving targets from Larry Fitzgerald. Yes, he's playing in the slot right now, but I think that's where they got to utilize him. I think he's a Julian Edelman type of player where he's a great slot receiver for a quarterback that if you give him a good offensive coach, he's going to be great in the future, in my opinion. I think Rosen's going to be that guy that, for the Cardinals, yes, he's not been great this year, but he's got Steve Wilkes as a quarterback, as his coach right now, who I don't think is a very good quarterback coach. I think Christian Kirk's a guy you really got to pick up in fantasy leagues.
Oh, yeah, I definitely think Kirk is legit, especially with, you mentioned he's a slot player, but he also has the versatility to go outside. What the Cardinals have been doing a lot with Larry Fitzgerald now, too, is they've moved him into the slot, and he's not getting as much of the work as he has in past years. I mean, he's arguably a top 5 wide receiver of all time in this league, and he's getting overshadowed in the offense by Christian Kirk because he's been playing so well. I think Kirk should be owned in all leagues, should be a flex consideration week in, week out, in my opinion. And I saw, despite 3 to 4 turnovers from Rosen yesterday, a lot of the when he had time to throw in the pocket, he looked really good, and he was putting some very accurate, well-placed balls. Just to pick out one instance in particular, I don't think it was Kirk or Fitzgerald, and I'm not well-versed on Cardinals receivers after that. But there was a throw over the middle of the field. He delivered a good throw to his receiver, but he let it a little bit behind the receiver so he could come back to it because he saw the safety coming up behind that receiver, so then it allowed the wide receiver time to turn away from that safety. And that's one of those plays where you see veteran quarterbacks make because they're protecting their receivers. And to see someone make that play in only his fourth start in the NFL, it really shows a lot, and I think Rosen will do good things in this league in the future.
Yeah, and honestly, that Cardinals record of 1-6, that scares a lot of people, saying, I'm not going to pick up anything from that team. They're garbage. Well, I think it's their defense that's really you got to stay away from. I don't think they have a really good defense. Yes, Chandler Jones is there, but that's a team that really hasn't done much when it comes to that defense. The defensive side of the ball, they've really focused on their offense. David Johnson, if you're a David Johnson fantasy owner, what are you doing now? He's been good, but not been up to the David Johnson standard of this is what we expect from him. Do you think this is someone, you know what, you just have to hold on to him and hope he gets better so you can have him for the rest of the season into the playoffs? Or do you think he's a guy that you say, you know what, let's just cut my losses and trade him right now?
Well, the perfect question for me, because I am a David Johnson fantasy owner, and I was going into this week, I had actually sent an offer for David Johnson and one of my bench players to another team in our league for Julio Jones. And then I second-guessed myself and I said, oh, Johnson's playing a not that good Denver run defense. I'll give him this week. If he can put up good points, then I'll hold on to him. He managed 7 yards. I think he only got 15 carries, which if your star running back's getting 15 carries against a team that you know you can beat on the ground, that's not good offensive game planning. So what I think at this point now, they're not utilizing him in the offense nearly as well as they utilized him 2 years ago when he was the #1 running back in fantasy. And I don't know. At this point, I think you shop him around and see what you can get back for him. Maybe you can get back
Maybe you can get like a Robbie Anderson and O.J. Howard, maybe.
Maybe.
You know what? Why don't you just check your trade proposals right there, Mike?
I'll have to see.
I wonder if someone offered you a trade for Doug Baldwin and David Johnson for Robbie Anderson and O.J. Howard.
A nice transition there. Doug Baldwin is a player that I think you should trade for because.
So it looks like you're declining my trade.
Unfortunately, on the air, I will be declining a trade from my counterpart here. But Doug Baldwin, I think Russell Wilson, if you say, oh, who is the one quarterback that always struggles in the beginning of the year and turns around the second half of the year? Russell Wilson is the poster child for that exact situation. And it is reflected in the seasons that Doug Baldwin has had. I saw a statistic somewhere where in the last 3 years between weeks, I believe it was weeks 9 to 17, over the last 3 years in terms of fantasy points, Doug Baldwin has been the wide receiver 3 in the entire league during that time frame. So I think coming now into the second half of the year, the Seahawks, at this point, their only hope in their division is a wild card spot because the Rams are going to run away with that division. And so I think Doug Baldwin is going to be a player to own in all leagues.
So we can transition now into just in general teams that we think are underperforming, overperforming right now. Let's talk about the Seahawks. Their schedule does not do them much help, I got to be honest. You know, they're coming up on a Lions game, a Chargers game, a Rams game, a Packers, Panthers, 49ers, Vikings, 49ers, Chiefs, Cardinals. That's a pretty tough back half of the schedule. Cardinals are an easy team to win. In my opinion. I think the 49ers are not good anymore because they lost Garoppolo and McKinnon. But the Chiefs, Vikings, Panthers, Packers, Rams, Chargers, and Lions, except for the Lions, maybe, those are all teams that are contending for a playoff spot. I think the back half of the schedule is not going to help the Seattle Seahawks at all this year. I think that they're sitting at 3-3 right now. Honestly, as much as I love Russell Wilson, I think he's a top 3 QB in the league, top 5 QB in the league right now. I think that 3-3, 8-8 record, I think that's pretty reasonable for the Seahawks in honesty.
Yeah, that's fair. Looking at their schedule here, their losses came against the Broncos, the Bears, and the Rams. And what I see, at least in maybe some bit of hope for Seahawks fans, is that there's been steady improvement. They lost their first two games of the season, got a win against a Cowboys team that looks like they've turned it around and they're performing well too. A win against the Cardinals team that, I mean, not a lot to say about the Cardinals. They lost to the Rams, but I thought that they outplayed the Rams in the first 3 quarters of that game. It's just they could not finish that game out. And to take a team like the Rams, that's the closest game the Rams have had all year, take them toe-to-toe, that's a really good thing to see. And they absolutely destroyed the Raiders last year. So, I mean, you can never really write off the Seahawks, but I think this will be their toughest battle to try and get a postseason spot that they've had in quite a few years now.
Yeah, and so you mentioned a team that they did, I believe. Did they win or lose? I'm trying to figure out here. Now, they did beat this team, this Dallas Cowboys. Last week, they did a huge showing against the Jacksonville Jaguars, 40-7 against that vaunted defense we think is the best in the league. I still think it's the best defense in the league. I mean, yes, Dallas picked them apart. So Dak Prescott, I think, is a bottom-tier QB in the league. I think he's bottom-tier, mid-tier. I think he's around that 20, 23 range in quarterbacks. And, putting up 40 points, that was a job by their defense, in my opinion, the Dallas defense, and Ezekiel Elliott in the offensive line. I still think that as much as they're injured, the offensive line for Dallas is still one of the best in the league. I mean, they still got those big players on that line, and that 40-7, that's a 33-point difference. But if their offense got the amount of points that they deserved, the Jacksonville Jaguars would have been in that game. That's why, in my opinion, the Dallas Cowboys are not as good as a team as their record shows. They say they're 3-3 right now. They lost against the Texans. That was a garbage game. That was a close game, but oh my gosh, that was a boring Sunday Night Football game, in my opinion. Yes, that was exciting in the very end with DeAndre Hopkins spinning all over the place, but Dallas has played close games against the Panthers, the Giants, the Seahawks, the Lions, the Texans, and the Jaguars was a win. Every single other game was within a 2-1 possession game. This is not a team I think is going to the playoffs. No matter how bad the NFC East is this year or how bad it's looked so far this year, I don't think this is a team that's making the playoffs. You still have to face the Redskins, who I think are okay this year. But the Titans, I think, are going to make a comeback if their offensive line does not completely fold in front of them. Eagles are still a good team. The Falcons, Steve Sarkisian. The Saints, they still have to play. They have to play the Eagles again. This is a team again, the schedule, they have some easy games mixed in there, but the overall schedule for them is not going to favor them making a playoff spot, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think a lot of people got really hyped up with this Jacksonville win, and we'll see how they carry themselves after a big win like that. But I think a lot of credit has to go to the coaching staff of the Dallas Cowboys in that game, because game planning was almost impeccable. I mean, you could see it from the beginning of the game that what they were going to do is they were going to let Dak Prescott move around as much as he wanted to. 11 rushes for Dak Prescott for 82 yards, which I think was close to a rushing record for the Cowboys in that game. And another stat line that shows you what their game plan was, 9 catches for Cole Beasley. The next closest receiver was 2 from their tight end. 9 catches from Cole Beasley for 101 yards and 2 touchdowns. They're making Dak get the ball out of his hands quickly. They're keeping the ball away from battles with A.J. Bouye and Jalen Ramsey, which they know that their wide receivers aren't going to win because their outside wide receivers are not that good.
No.
They trust Cole Beasley. Game planning was impeccable. That's a big reason why they won that game. And like you said, a lot of credit to their defense, too, because you don't win a game 40-3 where your quarterback throws for 183 yards.
Yeah. So, and now we can talk about the Jacksonville Jaguars. Do you think that game is going to start becoming the norm for their defense? Do you think they're still the best defense in the league? Or do you think that this team is on the downswing now? They were a one-year wonder last year with a 13-3 record, and now they're going to end up being that fringe playoff team for the next 5 years.
Oh, no, I don't think. I think Jacksonville, I think this is, every team has to have one. I think that's a wake-up game for them. If you lose a game by, 33 points, then, I mean, there's going to be conversations about, Blake Bortles is awful, and Blake Bortles is this, Blake Bortles is that. But I think that Jacksonville is going to turn this around. This division is, for the most part, up in the air. 3 teams tied at 3-3. Tennessee has had flashes. Houston's had flashes. But I think Jacksonville turns it around. I think they're still a playoff team, which is a little bit ironic that their defense, which was up until that game, was probably one of the best defenses in the AFC so far. And on the opposite side of the ball, the best defense in the NFC, the Chicago Bears, got torched by Brock Osweiler.
Okay. We can stop there. Okay, but I do have a question for you about the Jacksonville Jaguars. What is Blake Bortles? Who is Blake Bortles? What is he capable of, and what is he going to be?
If I'm an NFL GM, I do not want him as my quarterback. I think
not at all.
I think given the situation they're in right now,
okay,
you don't you don't start your backup, and I don't know who's available. Well, I don't want to get into the Kaepernick situation. But anyways, I think for right now till the end of the season, he is your guy no matter how, well, I don't want to say no matter how poorly he plays, because if he plays awful, then he's going to lose his job.
Okay.
But I think for right now, he's your quarterback that you roll with because, I mean, the quarterback that got you to the AFC Championship game last year, you can't just drop him like that.
Let's play a game. Okay? I saw Colin Cowherd do this. I'm not a fan of Colin Cowherd, but I saw him do this. It was every quarterback he'd rather play instead of Cam Newton. We're going to play that with Blake Bortles. We're going to go through every single team, name their starting quarterback, and you tell me, would you rather have Blake Bortles or this quarterback for the next 5 years? Ready? Arizona Cardinals.
5 years?
Arizona Cardinals. Would you rather have Josh Rosen or Blake Bortles?
Josh Rosen.
Atlanta Falcons. Matt Ryan or Blake Bortles?
Matt Ryan.
Joe Flacco or Blake Bortles?
Joe Flacco.
Joe Flacco over Blake Bortles for the next 5 years.
Well, if it's Joe Flacco of the beginning of this
You know
year.
what? Here, let's say 3 years. That's going to be easier.
3 years. Then.
What we know
I
of Joe
think-
Flacco and what we know of Blake Bortles.
I don't know. Then I'd probably have to say Bortles.
Okay.
Just because I think Flacco is going to put up big numbers this year, but I don't think he has a job next year. Or if,
Because of Lamar.
Because if there's no one behind Joe Flacco pushing him to be better, I don't think he's a good quarterback. I think he's playing good this year because of Lamar Jackson.
Okay.
The pressure behind him.
Josh Allen.
Josh Allen.
I like Josh Allen. Cam Newton.
Definitely Cam Newton.
Mitch Trubisky.
Definitely Mitch.
Andy Dalton.
I'd stay with Andy Dalton, yeah.
Baker Mayfield.
Baker.
Dak Prescott.
Is this in the Jacksonville offense?
It's in whatever offense you think that. Yes, we'll say Jacksonville.
I think Blake Bortles will be better in the Jacksonville offense than Dak Prescott would be.
Okay. Case Keenum.
Case Keenum. Underrated quarterback.
Okay. Matt Stafford, easy.
Yeah.
Aaron Rodgers, pretty easy. Deshaun Watson. Andrew Luck. Mahomes.
Oh,
You
definitely
take
Mahomes.
Phillip Rivers.
Yeah.
Next 3 years. Jared Goff. Yeah. Tannehill.
That I was looking at the Miami Dolphins. I'm saying that's because I think I still stay with Tannehill if I'm guaranteed no injuries for 3 years.
You're not guaranteed anything.
If I'm not guaranteed anything.
Not guaranteed anything but the quarterback you have on your team.
Ooh. Because Tannehill, what is it? He's missed quite a few games the last few years. But I think with injuries as a factor, I think I go with Blake Bortles.
Kirk Cousins.
Kirk Cousins.
Tom Brady. For the next 3 years, you think Tom Brady is still going to be better than Blake Bortles?
Yeah.
Drew
Definitely.
Brees.
Best quarterback in NFL history,
Okay.
statistic-wise.
Yes.
Not in terms of clutch playoff wins, which Tom Brady
Okay.
wins, no doubt. But
Sam Darnold.
Sam Darnold, yeah.
Carson Wentz. Russell Wilson. I'm just going to name the guys. I think you're easy.
Mm-hmm.
Alex Smith.
I'd stay with Alex Smith.
Marcus Mariota.
Marcus Mariota.
Ryan Fitzpatrick.
Can I just have Ryan Fitzpatrick for the first 3 weeks of the season and then switch back to Bortles?
No.
Then I'd go with
The
Bortles
Harvard man,
in that
though.
situation. Ooh, the Harvard
Jameis
man.
Winston.
Winston.
You'd rather have Winston? Okay.
Definitely.
CJ Beathard.
Underrated quarterback in my opinion. He came in
Out of Iowa.
at the end of last year and he played really well for the 49ers. Jeez, why can I not think of that? But I don't know. I definitely think he could flourish in an offense of his own that's built around him. So I think I might take CJ Beathard there.
Over Blake Bortles.
Over Blake Bortles. That's a bold
Wow.
statement, but
Okay. Derek Carr.
Derek Carr, yeah.
Eli Manning.
Blake Bortles. Over
Blake
Eli
Bortles.
Manning.
Okay. So, I didn't count up exactly how many, but you said Blake Bortles over about 7 or 10 quarterbacks on that list. So that puts him around 20th. And you said that Blake Bortles, you're not going to bring him back if you're the Jaguars. Who are you going to bring in? Are you going to let Tanner Lee start out of Nebraska, the guy they had this year as a backup? Are you going to pick up some guys in free agency? Because who's going to be out there really? Are you going to trade up in the draft? Because let's be honest, the way you're playing right now, you're going to sit around that mid-range, that 20s-ish range. You're not going to get a great quarterback there. Are you going to trade up for Justin Herbert? Are you going to trade up for someone else? What are you doing if the Jacksonville Jaguars if you're not keeping Blake Bortles?
I think I'm the Jacksonville Jaguars. I look at my offense and I say, apart from maybe an elite outside receiver, I have every piece that I want to build a Super Bowl caliber team except for quarterback. So then I say, am I willing to sacrifice future draft picks to move
How
up?
many firsts would you give up for the first overall pick for Justin Herbert or whoever quarterback you think is the best?
I don't think they need to go up to the first overall pick.
Who do you think is
there.
the best quarterback in the draft?
See, that's a good question. Unfortunately, I'm not that well versed in my college quarterbacks this
I
year.
can't say I am either, but
I know Will Greer is getting a
Yeah.
lot of hype in West Virginia. I think from what I've heard, it's similar to last year where there's about 4 to 5 peak guys in the college football world. So I say, okay, but then you have to look at who's going to be picking at the top of the draft. It looks like the Cardinals will be up there again. They don't need a quarterback. The Giants, if they don't pick a quarterback in the first round of this year's draft, something is seriously wrong with that front office. But I'm going to go and see who else is going to be. Arizona, San Francisco, they've got their quarterback for the future. Oakland shouldn't be. The Colts, looking at the bottom.
Wait, you're
teams in
saying
the NFL,
Oakland shouldn't be looking for a quarterback or shouldn't be in the bottom 5?
No, they should not be looking for a quarterback.
Okay.
Assuming that the bottom teams in the NFL, there are currently 5 teams at 1-5. Arizona, San Francisco, Oakland, the New York Giants, and Indianapolis. Only one of those teams needs a quarterback, in my opinion. And I say then, if you're the Jacksonville Jaguars and you're sitting at, let's say, 20 to 22 when the draft rolls around, you can move up to the 8 to 11 range and still get probably the second to third best quarterback in the draft that you would like, and then a guy that you can put into your offense and hopefully build around. And I think that's the last piece that the Jacksonville Jaguars need to build a Super Bowl caliber team.
Okay, give me 2 seconds. Looking up a 2019 mock draft for the NFL. So, nope, this is Daniel Jones out of Duke. That doesn't look like a top 10 pick right there. I've never seen that name before. Give me a second here. You know, I can't say I am highly apt with the college football players, but I know some of them.
Once the playoff rankings come around, then I'm sure we'll be hearing some names more than others.
So some names I've heard. So Justin Herbert out of Oregon, I think is right now the consensus #1 quarterback. I know that Will Greer out of West Virginia is a high-ranked guy. I know Drew Lock out of Mizzou is a high-ranked guy as well. Looking at some of the guys so Drew Lock right now is going number 9 to Tampa Bay on a Sports Illustrated mock draft. Is that someone you think they could trade up for in the number 9 range? Do you think that's too high for them? You know, some of the guys, Will Greer looking number 14 to Jacksonville in this mock draft. But if we're playing how they think we should play, they're going to be up there in that 20s range, so they're not going to be able to get that guy. Some of the guys that are later in the first round, Dwayne Haskins out of Ohio State, I think this guy's for real. But the problem is, I think this is the guy who's going to leap up draft boards to top 5. This guy's going to be a top 5 pick. Dwayne Haskins out of Ohio State, if he declares, this guy's going top 5 in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, he's a similar make and model to a lot of past Ohio State quarterbacks, where you look at the trifecta that they had that got them the national championship.
Braxton Miller,
Cordero Jones, and
Cardale Jones, and who's the other guy?
Braxton Miller converted to wide receiver, played on the Texans. Got cut recently. Cordero Jones is a backup.
Terrell Pryor, I think, right?
Terrell Pryor. No, there was a mobile quarterback.
Did he play quarterback in the NFL?
He got injured, and then that's why Cordero Jones came in for the last week of the
Oh,
season
yeah, you're
of the
right.
national championship.
QBs. I'm looking up Ohio State QBs
Anyway,
now.
so they had their legendary trifecta, and I think all of them ended up in the NFL, and none of them have had success so far. Haskins, I don't know. I'm not a huge Ohio State fan, to put that out there initially.
JT Barrett.
JT Barrett, there we go. JT, where did
he's on the Saints now.
Is he?
The Saints have the best quarterback room in the NFL. They have Breeze, then Bridgewater, then JT Barrett.
And Hill.
And Taysom Hill.
They're versatile special teams guy.
Dude, this guy. That's a great quarterback group to have.
Yeah.
And you're learning all from Drew Brees, too.
Exactly.
And Sean Payton.
Look at the options then they'll have, because Breeze, I mean, as amazing as he's playing, he's got 2 to 3 years maybe in this league maximum. Or maybe he pulls a Brady and goes
See, the
even
thing is,
longer.
I think that the weapons around him are going to make him go longer. Because now they
That's a
have
good
Kamara and Ingram who've been playing great. They have Thomas. They have decent players. Just keep adding to that offense. This guy will go for as long as he needs to.
But up until that, whenever that point comes, then you now have 3 quarterbacks and maybe the pick of the bunch, Taysom Hill. A lot of guys sleep on him, the most athletic one. Sean Payton has said that he pictures him as a starting quarterback in the NFL someday just because of how versatile he is.
Before Barrett got there, before Bridgewater got there, this guy was the prodigal son for Drew Brees. This is the guy who was going to take over his job eventually. Mm-hmm. And now they add Bridgewater and JT Barrett to the mix. I think as long as – see, the thing is with Taysom Hill, I think he's too versatile to just put as a starting quarterback. Because as a starting quarterback, you're playing every single snap. And I don't think that Taysom Hill is that kind of guy because he needs to be able to take some breaks to be able to use that, the plays. What they're playing on Thursday night or Monday night? Monday night against the Redskins.
Yeah.
They were using him so much because Breeze got the entire milestone and everything like that. Taysom Hill is used better in those little gimmicky plays, in my opinion. I don't think he's a quarterback that plays regularly. I think that's what Bridgewater's for. But the problem with that is that do you no longer have a big armed quarterback? Is Bridgewater that guy? He's more of a mobile quarterback. Does he have the arm strength enough to get the ball downfield when they need to? And they can use Taysom Hill interchangeably. I don't know. It's going to be interesting. I think that the way it stands right now, I think the job is given to Bridgewater. Because let's be honest, by the time Breeze retires, he's going to be in his late 20s. He's 25 right now. I think Taysom Hill's late 25 as well. I think he's an older guy as well. Mm-hmm. I think JT Barrett's also an older guy. So older guys meaning as a backup quarterback, a future quarterback. I think they're older guys. So I think that the way it stands right now, when Breeze goes, they still might have one of the better quarterbacks in the league and whoever they throw out there. I want to go into the NFC South now. New Orleans sitting at top 4-1. No one's surprised by that. They get Ingram back now. I just want to make a note. All you Alvin Kamara fantasy owners, don't panic. They just fed Ingram because they wanted to get him back in the groove. He's been out for however long he has been out. He was out for the first 4 weeks of the season. He's not used to this entire workload. They want to get him going as best as possible, and he was going. Let him play. So I think that don't overreact and say, well, no, I got to trade Kamara. No. You keep him, he'll get the touches he got last year, which is still a top-tier running back. But the rest of the guys in the division, I didn't like Carolina coming into the season. I still don't like Carolina in this season just because I do not trust their offensive line that's really been beat up. Their front seven may be a top 3 in the NFC right now, but I can't give that offense enough credit. I think that it's going to catch up to Cam pretty fast. He has a history of getting injuries he could play through, but I think that Cam's a guy who you're going to run into some trouble with in the future. The Buccaneers, they are who I thought they were. Well, not for the first few weeks of the season until they ran into the Bears. And then
everybody will run into the Bears at some point,
except for the Vikings. The Atlanta Falcons sitting at 2-4. As much as I want to say I'm surprised by this, I'm not because Steve Sarkisian.
Well, to counteract your point there, okay. I feel bad for the Falcons a little bit because in the safety position, they have been absolutely torched with injuries. I believe their top
It's their defense in general. Deion Jones went, and a bunch of other linebackers went too.
They lost one linebacker for sure that was starting. They lost their top 3 safeties.
Oh, my gosh.
And that's a lot of the reason why wide receivers are torching them deep on at least every single game. All their games are up over 30 points.
Just to back you up, the first week when they had them all healthy, 18 points given up. The rest of the weeks, 24, 43, 37, 41, and 29. So they're giving upwards of 25 points each game.
And Julio Jones still does not have a touchdown somehow, and they're putting up 30 points a game.
And that's where Steve Sarkisian comes into play. Mm-hmm. Yes, their offense is doing fine without Julio, but guess what? You could be winning these games with Julio. Julio could be the most athletically gifted receiver in the league right now.
I think he's a better DeAndre Hopkins. I
think
they're very similar receivers. Julio Jones is faster, in my opinion, because he's taller than he is, than Hopkins is. So he's got longer strides. He can move faster, and he's more experienced in this league than Hopkins is. And he's proven I think he is, when he's given the ball, he is the best receiver in the NFL talent-wise.
Yes. And honestly, why are you not feeding him then? They have red zone problems. Feed Julio. He's the biggest guy out there. He's the most athletic guy out there. Give him the ball. If you have to hand the ball off to him so he can run it in the end zone, let him do that. This is a team that's better than 2-4. I think they're going to push for a wild card spot, but they got to get their acts together pretty fast. Another team that I think is a wild card team that's not been looking so hot is the Minnesota Vikings and the Green Bay Packers. The Chicago Bears.
Yes.
Now, let me finish my entire statement. The Chicago Bears are not going to win the NFC North.
Hold up.
They're not. And you know what? If someone wants to sound clip this and send it back to me when week 18, the first round of the playoffs comes around, and the Bears are sitting with the first round bye, please do that. Because I will be very surprised if that happens. The Bears are a team that's vaunted their defense. Their offense, besides for a Buccaneers game where they play a garbage defense, has not been great. They put up 28 points against the Dolphins last week. Good job, it's the Dolphins. You put up 16 points against the Arizona Cardinals, who we think is the worst team in the league. You put up 24 points against the Seahawks. They don't have anyone else in that defense anymore. They have a couple good guys, but no one great. And then 23 points against the Packers. That's not a great defense either. You're playing the Patriots, then the Jets, then the Bills, then the Lions, then the Vikings. Patriots, Jets, Vikings have top 10 defenses in the league. Good luck, Mitch Trubisky.
Based on my history, the Patriots have not had a top 10 defense at all this year. And when the Bears beat the New England Patriots this Sunday, the Bears will walk to the NFC North title. They will win it. They will go 12-4 minimum because there are two teams. Last week, absolute fluke. Khalil Mack was injured. Therefore, pass rush gets hurt a lot. Brock Osweiler. Wait. Let me hate on Brock Osweiler just for a little bit. Brock Osweiler is 4-0 in his career against the Bears. That was without question. Brock Osweiler is the king of flukes. Why do you think he's one of the highest paid quarterbacks in the history of the league and then somehow gets cut 1 year later? Anyways, Brock Osweiler is the king of coming into a game, someone gets injured out of nowhere. Oh, it's Brock Osweiler. The Bears will walk all over him. And then he just pulls this game out of nowhere. Within 2 weeks, Brock Osweiler will be absolute garbage. He will be lowest of the low, worst starting quarterback in the NFL inside of 2 weeks if he continues to start.
Can I say something? I don't like Brock Osweiler either. I don't think he's that good.
No one should.
So the way I see the Bears team, I just want to go back and explain my claims because I made some pretty erroneous claims. I said that they're going to get crushed in the next 3 games. So Trubisky is being too safe with the ball.
I'm okay with that.
You see, yes, for now. But when it gets playoff time and you have a Chiefs-Titans game where there's like no scoring, you're going to have some trouble with it. And when Matt Nagy's not feeding the ball to a top 10 running back in the league like Jordan Howard, you're gonna see that come playoff time. Your defense can only carry you so far, in my opinion. So Jordan Howard only getting the carries and the yardage that he's getting, that scares me if I'm a Bears fan. And having Tariq Cohen get the amount of snaps he is, good. Let Tariq Cohen get those snaps. But give the ball to Jordan Howard. Feed Jordan Howard. This guy's getting hungry out there, just waiting to get fed, and he just needs the ball in his hands to be able to be successful. They can be great with Jordan Howard. They're not using him right now. They're not going to be great.
See, I think a little bit of a counter to that point. I'm a Jordan Howard fantasy owner, and as a fantasy owner of Jordan Howard, I'm angry to see the points that he's putting up. As a Bears fan, I'm okay with it because the way that Nagy wants this offense to run is through Tariq Cohen.
That's why Jordan Howard is going to be leaving in 2 years.
The way, okay. Again, I love Jordan Howard. I think he's an unbelievable back, but I don't know. The way the offense is working right now, it works so well with the way, because I think
without Jordan Howard.
Without Jordan Howard, that's
so
fair.
Jordan Howard. Can you accept that Jordan Howard is not a Chicago Bears player for this team under Matt Nagy?
Well, I think
He's not a Chicago Bears player under Matt Nagy.
I think they'll work him back into the system. I think their takes, because with the Tampa Bay game, with the Dolphins game, the Bears offense looked really good in both games, in my opinion. I thought Trubisky looked really good. And that's them, because they're initially just Trubisky, his coming out game was against the Buccaneers. And they're trying to ease him into now the limelight of being a capable starting quarterback in the NFL. So when they're still trying to work Trubisky into this perfect offense, you don't work Trubisky into an offense by running the ball between the tackles with Jordan Howard. I think there comes a time when Trubisky can start completing the plays that Nagy dials up for him every single time so that you don't have these. I mean, his completion percentage was really good against the Dolphins, to be fair. But when the offense starts working in the perfect system, in my opinion, the way that I see Nagy viewing this offense is that I say Jordan Howard gets the ball 20% of plays.
Okay.
20 to 25% of plays where we're passing 60% of the time and ball's in Cohen's hands 15% of the time. Don't check my math on that because I just...
missed 5%.
Trubisky can scramble for 5% of the plays. But anyways, I think that's my dream offense for the Bears. I think 2 weeks of bad Jordan Howard is nothing to stress about because the offense has been good, so I think it'll work its way out.
Now, I'm going to finish my statement about the NFC North. The Bears are not going to win the NFC North. The Minnesota Vikings will not win the NFC North. The Vikings defense has not looked great this year. They've been hammered by injuries and incidents within their defense.
Buffalo.
Losing Everson Griffin is a huge loss.
That hurts a lot.
Because he's been a top 5 defensive lineman in the league, but he's a leader on the team too. And they lost Mike Hughes, their rookie cornerback. Xavier Rhodes has not been great this year. They've lost Dalvin Cook. I don't want to make excuses for Vikings. They've had a tough schedule, and Kirk Cousins has been one of the best quarterbacks in the league this year. Mm-hmm. He's got some of the best receivers, but he's been one of the best quarterbacks.
Thielen. Can we talk about Adam Thielen
please.
for a second?
Yes, please.
As hard as it is, because it's been a while since the Bears have had a good receiver, it feels like, but a lot of credit to Adam Thielen and what he's doing. Have they had their bye week yet? No. So 6 games of over 100 yards for Adam Thielen.
Yeah.
And first off, not to rain on your parade, because what he's doing is incredible. You can thank Stephon Diggs for a lot of that.
Oh, true.
Because if you have two...
If you throw Thielen out there and then put Brian Scalabrine on the other side, Thielen's getting triple covered.
Yeah, exactly. And just another thing, I think his story is incredible, too.
Oh, it is.
Went to a D2 school in Minnesota. Had a tryout for the Vikings, made the practice squad, I think, and then managed to work his way up and is now
the best receiver
in the NFL. Is he first in yardage?
Yes, he is.
With Julio Jones second, but we already hated on Julio earlier. But anyways, a lot of credit to Thielen. Their offense is looking really good in the passing game sense.
Yes.
There's a lot to be said about their running game.
Their running game has been, let's say, garbage, incompetent.
That falls on the offensive
terrible.
line to me, though, because Dalvin Cook is a talented running back. Latavius Murray proved last year when he filled in for Cook that he's a competent running back.
Last week, even. He had 120 yards or something like that.
Yeah, very good week for him.
The thing is, the offensive line, I knew exactly what was the problem. Kirk Cousins is... The only reason Kirk Cousins has almost 2,000 yards and 12 touchdowns is because he's I think it's the 3rd best quarterback when under pressure. He's been pressured the most in the NFL. And yes, that comes at the price because they've been passing the ball so much. But the offensive line, come on. Put the Eagles' offensive line on the Vikings. The Vikings have Dalvin Cook, probably not injured, running the ball over teams. And Kirk Cousins, who's getting the time to find Thielen and Diggs down the field and Rudolph and whoever else they want to throw out there. This is an offense that can be great with an offensive line.
Yeah, going into the year, we had said that the one problem with the Minnesota Vikings, they had a complete defense. We couldn't expect the things that have happened to their defense since then, which is only a negative for them. But the one area that they were going to struggle was their offensive line, and that's proven as to why they're struggling so much this year. And I still think a lot of credit due to them. 3-2-1 should really be 4-2. They probably should have beat with better kicking. That's a sad game to talk about, but better kicking, they beat the Green Bay Packers. And to look at
I want to talk about kicking. Why is everyone missing anything? kickers are missing field goals. Kickers are missing extra points. You know, when I see a kicker go up for an extra point and it looks right down the middle, I actually say, oh my gosh, he actually just made an extra point. Easily. It looked effortless. The kicking percentage, I'm not sure if it's been down from last year, but I've noticed it so much more this year.
Yeah, fun fact, that one week where, what was the name of the Vikings kicker that missed all those field?
Daniel Carlson.
Daniel Carlson and Zane Gonzalez of the Cleveland Browns that same week. A fun fact there, I'm pretty sure they were both rookies.
Yep.
Last year in college, they were awarded first and second in awards for the best college kickers in the entirety of the country, those two kickers.
Yeah.
So they were voted the two best kickers to come out of college. I'll throw it back to another guy, Roberto Aguayo, drafted in the third round, second round, third round as a kicker.
I think it was the second round.
Was it the second? Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh my, the Buccaneers, what are you doing? Bring back John Gruden, pay him $10 million or $100 million for 10 years.
He was a late second round pick.
Oh my. Okay, anyways. Success in college does not translate to success in the NFL for kicking whatsoever. Funny story, another backstory for another quarterback, Adam Vinatieri. I'm pretty sure he kicked in Europe. That there was some sort of obscure football league in Europe where he kicked for, and then came to the NFL and has since become the best kicker in the history of the
Josh
NFL.
Lambo, who had a terrible year last year with the Chargers, is now with the Jacksonville Jaguars, who's been a better kicker this year, 100% on the extra point attempts and field goals. So maybe he has been pretty decent. He's a former MLS goalie.
Really?
Yeah. Josh Lambo was a Major League Soccer goaltender who moved to the NFL to be a kicker, and he's done pretty good this year. So I think that unconventional path to the NFL is better. I don't know if it's
career
better.
kickers are not doing so hot in the
They
NFL.
really aren't. Dan Bailey, even the Mr. Consistency, has been missing field goals for the Vikings, even when they brought him in. The Vikings. So it's interesting to see some of the teams that are at the bottom of the list, because some of the teams you expect. Arizona's down here, Cleveland's down here, Oakland, Green Bay, Detroit. These teams are at the bottom of the list. Top of the list, Atlanta, Denver, Kansas City, Carolina, Jacksonville. Those are some pretty good teams. Bottom of the list as well, LA Rams with a 26th rank. Pittsburgh Steelers, Seattle, Chargers, Philadelphia. These are some teams that that's a pretty good team with a pretty garbage kicker.
I think at least for the Rams, a lot of credit goes to the injury to
Greg Zuerlein.
Greg Zuerlein, probably one of the best kickers, best kicker in the league last season for sure. And I mean, I kind of ironically, I think we've told this story before. In our fantasy league, we had a member who accidentally drafted the backup kicker for the Rams,
Sam Ficken,
who then ended up starting 1 week in the NFL. Just a little funny backstory. But anyways, I don't know, big teams like that. Chris Boswell just got paid a lot of money in the offseason and has not been performing that well. But then again, the Steelers as a team, their offense has been chasing teams from behind because their defense has been playing well. So then the kickers get kicked to the side and everything's touchdowns.
What are the Steelers? Is James Conner the new main guy if Le'Veon does come back, which they said he's going to be back and he's not back? Is Le'Veon going to get a job when he does come back? Or if he comes back, are the Steelers just going to keep rolling with James Conner and pretend like Le'Veon doesn't exist? What is going on with the Steelers?
From a complete outside perspective, if you look at their offense and you say they have a top 5 offensive line, Big Ben has been playing well. I think there's better quarterbacks, but he's been playing good.
He's first in the league in passing yards.
Wow. Well, that tells you how bad their defense has been. But anyways, I think they have the second best wide receiver duo in the NFL after Thielen and Diggs.
Juju and Antonio Brown.
Because look at the season Juju's been having because coverage gets drawn to Antonio Brown. And then their running game, you've got James Conner, who's been performing amazing. And then guess who's hiding in the shadows? Le'Veon Bell. Again, outside perspective, what I want to see happen, I want to see Le'Veon Bell get traded. Because not caring about the Steelers whatsoever and just rooting for the people, I'd rather see James Conner. His story, amazing story. Kid from Pitt, been a Steelers fan his entire life.
Had cancer in college, in University of Pittsburgh. Had cancer, he beat it, he defeated cancer, and he's on the Pittsburgh
Came back, drafted by his hometown team, and is now playing amazing. And Le'Veon Bell, I mean, not that I don't like the guy, and I am 100% I'm backing him in the situation he's in because the guy deserves to get paid. up there with Gurley as 1 and 2 as the 2 most talented running backs in the NFL, in my opinion. Saquon's maybe in that discussion now too. But anyways, Le'Veon Bell, very talented, deserves the money. Steelers, they'd be an unbelievable team if they had help on the defensive side of the ball. That's where they're really struggling.
It is. And the way I see the Le'Veon situation, I know that I think the big thing that really symbolizes what Le'Veon's done, in our fantasy league, there's a trade today. Le'Veon Bell was traded straight up for Doug Martin.
I think I was in the free period when this trade went down, and this was between Adam Lombardi and Matt Koth.
Yep.
I might have to tell them to listen to this because I shouted them out now. Anyways, that I believe there was a joke being told there because Adam's team and Matt Koth's team have underperformed, to say the least, so far this year. So I think it was just a matter of, I'm tired of having Le'Veon Bell sitting on my IR spot and I want to dump him, which Doug Martin, worth absolutely nothing in fantasy.
Well, Marshawn Lynch is out, so maybe he is.
I still think Jalen Richard then takes over in that team, or they'll just go to a committee. I don't think Doug Martin gets any work
shout
there.
out Matt Koth right here, but he's in an 0-6 right now.
Again, if we're talking on the topic of Matt Koth, his fantasy team, if you look at it, it does not look like an 0-6 team.
He's injury.
He's got Cam Newton. He's got Julio Jones. Both sound pretty good. However, his second-round pick, Dalvin Cook, that hurts him a lot. He complains to me almost every day about Dalvin Cook is out again. Like, what am I going to do? Anyways, I don't know. It's just an unfortunate situation for Dalvin Cook owners in fantasy.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, I was going to try to propose a trade for Dalvin because I needed some running backs. If anyone has any running backs out there, go ahead and send me some trades. I'm sitting with Kerryon Johnson and Alex Collins.
Yikes.
Don't tell me how I got Alex Collins because I'm not going to tell you.
Not sure how that happened.
No. So back to the NFL, I guess, if we have to. When you look at some of the teams in the AFC, inside the AFC North, I don't see how the Ravens can't win that division. I think that defensively, they are the best defense in the league.
Well, I think so far definitely played like the best defense in the league, and I watched a video on YouTube yesterday.
Same.
Exactly. We probably watched the same
video. I recommended you that guy a year ago.
A couple years ago, and he's Brett Cole.
Brett Coleman is a guy who just dissects.
Kollman.
He dissects film, and it's beautiful to watch how it comes together.
He pointed out how the Baltimore Ravens defense is playing really good, and they put up 11 sacks last week. Mm-hmm. But all their sacks have been coming against inexperienced quarterbacks because they pointed out that the Ravens, their game plan for defense is really smart because they prey on fear, which is something that in NFL terms.
That's what the Patriots did for 12 years now. The reason that Tom Brady is so good is because he's feared by the defensive players.
They give the Baltimore Ravens, they rush a lot. They blitz heavy, 5 to 6 a lot of the time. They collapse the pocket, give the quarterback almost no time to work, and the quarterback panics. He misses his go-to routes coming across the middle with 10 yards of space because he's panicky. He's looking in the pocket. Oh, gosh, who's coming over on my blind side? I need to look this way. And then all of a sudden, he's getting sacked. First, a lot of credit to Marcus Mariota. He got sacked 11 times, turned the ball over 0 times.
Gosh.
That is insane. But anyways, yeah, Baltimore's defense, really good. So they've got a real test this week against the Saints, though.
So I want to go through the rest of the Ravens' schedule. They play the Saints. I think this is going to be a loss for them because, again, it's an experienced quarterback. It's the Saints. The Panthers, it's going to be interesting because I don't think their offense is going to get anything done.
I think whoever wins the battle at the line wins that game. So, which I think will be the Ravens' defensive line. So then
they play the Steelers again. I think it's a loss. That's a home game. They beat the Steelers earlier.
At Heinz Field, yeah, that's a tough place to go.
They beat the Steelers earlier in the season, but I don't see enough in the team to say, that's a win.
Look at their other games that they have out of the division too. Raiders are beatable. Falcons, that'll be a shootout, but Falcons are definitely beatable. Chiefs are a tough game.
So when you say inexperienced quarterbacks, I saw the stat as well. They have 4 sacks against experienced quarterbacks, 11 or like 24 against the other ones. What is Patrick Mahomes? Because I know he's a second-year quarterback, but he's looked like the best quarterback in the league.
I think that'll be a really interesting game to watch that probably people won't be looking at that much in Week 14. because it'll tell us a lot about Patrick Mahomes. He's been really good. The Chiefs have a really good offensive line. They've been protecting him. Mahomes is a mobile quarterback, too. He can definitely roll out of the pocket. And that'll be a real test to see. I can't say right now what'll come of Mahomes, but it'll be interesting to see for sure.
I think it will. And so we could talk about Mahomes a little bit, because Mahomes, I don't think he's that good. I just don't. I know I'm going to get completely killed because he's been great this year. But, what is that a product of Andy Reid play calling? What is that a product of the targets he has and the offense he has? He has Kareem Hunt as his running back. He has Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce, two of the most dynamic players. He has Sammy Watkins as a target as well. He's got an offensive line. I mean, put Pat Mahomes in the situation of a Derek Carr, and he's not putting up anywhere near these type of stats, in my opinion. I think that Mahomes is the product of where he is, and guess what? It's worked for Tom Brady. It's worked for not Matt Stafford. What are some other quarterbacks that have really been a product of their situation?
Drew Brees.
I mean, I don't think Drew Brees is a record-breaking quarterback without Sean Payton and Marquise Colston and Michael Thomas and the running backs he's had. I don't think that Tom Brady is the best quarterback of all time.
Without the best coach of all time.
Without the best coach of all time, and Julian Edelman, and Randy Moss, and an offensive line.
Rob Gronkowski.
I think that Mahomes, I know I just compared him to Drew Brees and Tom Brady, but I think that this is going to come back, because I don't think Andy Reid is staying in Kansas City much longer. I got to be honest. I think that Kansas City is going to get a little mad at Andy Reid choking in the second round or first round of the playoffs, and he's not going to make it to a Super Bowl with the roster he has right now. I don't think his defense is good enough, and they're going to blame it on him, because who else are you going to blame it on?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of an unfortunate situation because Andy Reid is an unbelievable play caller. But again, your team is only as good as every part of your team. Mm-hmm. So if their defense is playing atrociously, and I think they're on pace to be like the worst defense yardage-wise in the NFL this year, but then you're not going to do anything in the playoffs because you're going to come up against the Patriots, a team where their game planning for the playoffs is impeccable, or a team like the Ravens, that one of the best defensive teams in the NFL, that's really going to test them, where when they're not going to be able to put the points up offensively, then can their defense step up and help them out? And so far, hasn't really been the case. Okay,
so I know we're coming up short on time here. I want to go through each division. Tell me the division winners. NFC West, I think the Rams win. I don't think they go 16-0, but I think they go 3-13, 14-2. I think they win a division there. Do you agree?
Yep.
NFC South, I think the Saints win it. I don't think there's any wild card teams from that division either.
No, I can agree with that. Yeah.
Okay. NFC East, I think the Eagles win it still. I still think that Peterson and Wentz are going to get it together at some point and win the division.
I'm going to say that the Redskins win that division. The Eagles get a wild card spot.
Okay.
Because I think that Redskins defense is very underrated. They've been playing really well. They had a really bad game against one of the best quarterbacks of all time, who set the biggest record for a quarterback that you can set.
And that defensive line is elite, honestly. The bunch of young
Bama
guys.
boys up front.
Exactly. Casually skipping over to the NFC North. AFC East, I say the New England Patriots win that. I don't think the Dolphins are for real at all. As you said, Brock Osweiler, he's going to go back into his cage very soon. I think the Jets are going to come out and so are the Buffalo Bills. Mm-hmm. AFC North, I think the Ravens win it. I think the Steelers sneak a wild card in there. I don't think the Bengals are for real this year. I think their defense is good. I like Andy Dalton. I've been one of the guys who's been saying, he's a decent quarterback, but not great. I don't think they're a playoff caliber team though.
I think Baltimore wins that division too, but I don't think. I'll come back to my wild cards for the AFC, but I'll say Baltimore wins that division.
AFC West, I'm giving it to the Chargers. I think the Chiefs are going to fall off. I don't think that defense is sustainable. That 43-40 loss said a lot to me last week. I think it's going to be like that for every single game this season. I don't think they're going to win those games. I think the Chargers are a more complete team and they make the playoffs as the number 2 seed.
The Chargers are right there too. People say they're underperforming. Kansas City's been going crazy. They're only a game back. I think that the top of that division is close. I think Kansas City and LA both go to the playoffs for sure though. Both are 11-win teams minimum.
I think that the Houston Texans sneak in as the winner of the AFC South, with the Jacksonville Jaguars taking the first wild card spot. In my opinion, I think that the Ravens. So here, ratings-wise, I think it goes Patriots, Chargers, Ravens, Texans, with the Steelers. So Jacksonville and Steelers making the wild card in the AFC.
I'll go with Jacksonville and Kansas City making a wild card in those spots. And Pittsburgh misses out on the playoffs, which Steelers fans won't be happy about.
Especially without Le'Veon.
Yeah.
Now, I casually skipped over them. NFC North, I think the Green Bay Packers win the NFC North. I don't want to say it. You don't want to hear it. You don't want to say it. I don't want to hear it. I think the Packers, I've learned throughout my 4 years of high school to never say anything bad about Aaron Rodgers, or it's going to bite you in the butt. And I don't want to bash any Bears fans. I don't want to be too happy about the Vikings. I think that the Green Bay Packers win this division, with the Bears and Vikings coming in the wild card spots.
Yeah, really quickly, I'll say I think the Bears are winning this division, and I'll say I don't think Green Bay makes the playoffs. I think Minnesota will turn it around behind Kirk Cousins playing really well at quarterback, and I think that Khalil Mack comes back and he's up there in the MVP conversation for the entirety of the year, and then the Bears end up winning that division. 11 to 12 wins for the Bears.
Okay. Super Bowl predictions. Who's winning it from the AFC?
AFC, I'm going to go with at this point, I'm going to go with the Chargers.
Okay, and then from the NFC?
It's got to be the Rams.
Okay. I will say that the Rams make it from the NFC. I'm not going to disagree with you there. Geez, that'd be stupid of me to disagree that the Rams are the best team in the NFC. And for the AFC prediction on who makes the Super Bowl, I like that Chargers pick. I like it a lot. I think the Ravens win it on the back of Lamar Jackson.
Interesting.
Lamar Jackson will take over in Week 15 because Flacco gets injured. And Lamar Jackson carries this team to a Super Bowl appearance, but not the Super Bowl win. That's it. That's all the time we have today. Thank you all for listening. Have a great week or weekend, depending on how you guys see it. Make sure you guys, if you guys see this early enough, make sure you guys tune in tonight for our Notre Dame versus Joliet Catholic football game. Have a great rest of your week. Have a great rest of your day. And go Dons.